kondu vidyarambam kuttu hari shri tokin kanji vali shilam pande marata vyadi ninjil putti vacho ranga kali tirata vashi annan nisha vacho rata puli idaya nannorukum ninnorukum pande yabatte katta chora kondu juice adiche soda sarbatte nudil madayane merukidum karutte ivane padachu vitta kadavulukke pattil patte
Namaskar. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Team Road is pleased to have you all here this rainy evening. Road, Room Open to Art Design, is an initiative formed in the year 2006 by a group of like-minded architects to introduce young creative minds to the new possibilities, unknown avenues, and innovative interpretations of spaces. This is our sincere effort to refresh design awareness, sustainable ideas, liveliness of modernity, as well as the undiminishing light of conservative thought. Road aspires to instill hope and believes these interactions inspire and enlighten students and professionals. On behalf of Team Road, I, Aishwarya, welcome you all in this August gathering. This year, we are celebrating the Doshi Correa Memorial Week in honor of the two legends in the Indian architecture, Balkrishna Doshi and Charles Correa, the two names who have left an indelible mark on the world of architecture in India. These two architectural giants have not only designed iconic buildings, but have also redefined the way we think about space, culture, and community. B.V. Doshi, the first Indian architect to receive the Pritzker Prize, is known by his poetic and contextual designs that blend modernity with tradition. Born on the 26th of August 1927 in Pune, India, Balkrishna Doshi's journey from an aspiring artist to a pioneering architect has been nothing short of awe-inspiring. In a career spanning about 7 decades, Doshi completed more than 100 projects, many of which were public institutions based in India, schools, libraries, art centers, and low-cost housing. In considering India's traditions, lifestyles, environment, Doshi designed structures that offered refuge from the weather and provided spaces in which to gather and celebrate. Charles Correa, on the other hand, was a pioneer of modern Indian architecture, celebrated for his bold and innovative designs that seamlessly integrated traditional and contemporary elements. His iconic buildings, including the National Crafts Museum in New Delhi and the Vidhan Bhavan in Bhopal, showcase his mastery of form, light, and space. Correa's legacy extends far beyond his buildings. He inspired generations of architects, urban planners, and designers to rethink the role of architecture in society. His commitment to social responsibility, sustainability, and cultural sensitivity continues to influence architectural practice in India and around the world. Through their groundbreaking work, Doshi and Correa have inspired generations of architects, designers, thinkers to reimagine the built environment and its relationship with society. And at Road, it is our humble effort to commemorate their legacy. Today, on the second day of this Memorial Week, we have with us Vinu Daniel, a visionary architect who is redefining the way we think about building and living in harmony with nature. As the founder and principal architect of Wallmakers, a pioneering architectural firm based in Kerala, India, Vinu has been instrumental in creating innovative, sustainable, and context-driven designs that blend seamlessly into their surroundings. His designs are characterized by their imaginative use of space and materials. He often employs techniques such as rammed earth and recycled materials, creating structures that are both visually striking and functional. His work includes a diverse range of projects from residential homes to community spaces. He actively engages with students and professionals to share his knowledge and advocate for sustainable practices in architecture. His contributions have been recognized both in India and internationally, making him a prominent figure in the movement towards more responsible and innovative architectural practices. On behalf of Team Road, I welcome you, Vinu, and all of us are eager to hear you, so over to you.
It's very overwhelming to see a lot of people coming in, even in such a rainy day. This wouldn't happen in Kerala. It's great to see that, you know, like there are a lot of enthusiasts who love architecture, and it's been some time since I gave a talk back in India, and I am a bit, how to say, jittery, tense, but it's also great to see that, you know, a full crowd and enthusiastic crowd. So thank you, Pune, once again for turning out in this large number in spite of such a rainy day. To talk about B.V. Doshi or Charles Correa, I would be the last person to talk about them, because I myself entered architecture on an accident basis. One of the first questions that is asked to us is, do you know the works of B.V. Doshi and Charles Correa? And as a person who just started understanding very little about architecture, it was difficult for me to answer. But as anyone knows, there is a mandatory visit for any aspiring architect to CEPT University. And that staircase was something which was very awe-inspiring. And somehow I finished my architecture course in that 5 years itself. And after finishing, I found out that doing sustainable architecture is what I took a more Lorry Baker line. And I want to do a bit more of sustainable construction. And one of my professor suggested to me to go and learn from this man on this picture. His name is Satprime Maini. He's a French guy. He settled way back in '89 in Auroville and started an institute called Auroville Earth Institute. And all I wanted to learn from him was how to make mud brick, and it was all a new magical world for me, because post architecture I was having this uneasy feeling that I never learned anything. So I had this idea that I need to learn more. And in those days, actually, people were also not so, how to say, like thinking that, you know, like, okay, you became architect, how much can you build? That was not the question that is asked, you know, how much did you learn? And I could honestly say, after 5 years of architecture, I learned nothing. And I wanted to kickstart the process. I felt absolutely devastated that I couldn't know the dimensions of a brick or do any brick mortar thing. So I went and learned with him. And my initial idea was to learn a lot and then go back to Kerala and kickstart my own architecture work. That is when I found out that revolutionizing mud architecture in Kerala is not that easy. But I found a victim. So as any good boy in the family, generally your first victims are your sisters. You know, they are the culpable, you know, like how to say, they are gullible. And I kind of convinced her. She's elder sister, she's in Gulf, she has some money. So I kind of convinced her, Eddie, this is an amazing thing. And even though I had one enemy on the side, that was my brother-in-law. He was civil engineer, so he knew a bit about what I was talking. But somehow I convinced her and kickstarted the proceedings of making mud bricks, because I knew that Auroville Earth Institute or Auroville is not the place to start your venture. You need to start in your own place. I had all these altruistic ideas and stupid ideas of starting in my own hometown. I don't know why. But nevertheless, I found my first victim as my sister. But very soon, I became the victim because they stopped the mud production. They understood that this is not going anywhere where they like. Like many of you who have started your own endeavors, I'm thinking some of you must have started. Everybody has this notions, I'm going to change the world overnight, you know. I'm going to kickstart my own revolution and everything. My brick ended up under the dustbin, as you can see in this picture. This is a picture of my house. Some of my old colleagues are here. All of them can say they have seen it. This is, unfortunately, my very first mud brick. As any genuine son would do, I presented this to my mother, and my mother took it straight to the garbage bin. I still don't know what it is doing under the garbage bin. But anyway, I knew that if I had to move forward in this direction, what I need is very much visionary clients. I cannot move forward without visionary clients. And thankfully, my first visionary client was none other than the South or the North or the Indian playback sensation, Padma Bhushan, Dr. K.J. Yeshudas. Many of the elder generation would remember him for all the songs he sang, and he was quite famous. And somehow I managed to convince him that we should be able to kickstart this revolution back in Kerala. And he, on the trot of receiving these awards, sometimes you sing a song, A. Rahman sings a song, Yeshudas sings a song. After singing a song, you get these awards. And mere 2.5 lakhs he won for a song or something as an award. And he gave it to me and told, if you can do something. And we found out a cancer victim who needed a house. And this was my first start opportunity. And with 2.5 lakhs, only once I started, I understand 2.5 lakhs is nothing. It's not even enough to really end up building. So at the end, we were literally scrapping the road, taking everything from scraps to beer bottles. But eventually we finished something which got a lot of attention. It gained a lot of praise. And this was our first residence that we completed. It was just a meager 550 square feet residence, which had 2 walls. I did everything, whatever I could do. I borrowed some money also from here and there. But thankfully, that process led to one of my uncles, a late uncle, he passed away, S. Nainan. I know many people would tell you to not build for family, and they're right. Because the ones who are built will understand the kind of trouble that you end up in once you start building for family. And similarly, I also ended up in trouble. But one good, thankful thing was, my uncle, until his death, believed that I did a very nice work. But the rest of them didn't. But nevertheless, I could complete one of my first, let's say, a medium size houses with CSCB. This was when I realized that there is something unique happening. I can probably, go in a different line, because almost all architects in here would be always thinking, what am I going to do different? What is my calling? Which direction will I move? And thankfully, because I knew nothing, and I could do anything, my workers also were, like kind of, how to say this, they didn't know much about the work and everything. They were not exactly skilled. So I could actually tell them that I build this arch like this, and they wouldn't know about the stability, structure or any of those things, and they followed the path. So it was not exactly an employer-employee relationship. It was more like a teacher and student, and generally students believe whatever teachers say. Many of you teachers would know that. So I could convince them to continue building with me. I was also a part of it. I was, let's say, the lead mason, a very slow mason, but I was a lead mason. And I could show them step by step. And because I had some 10 or 15 people who believed that, okay, whatever our shows can work, like a class of students, we started building more and more larger structures. We started to push our envelope a bit more, bigger. And this is Matanjeri Church, which we were asked to build, because there was an existing church, some dilapidated foundations and walls. They said, can you, like make a unique symbolic structure? And that is when I thought that we could do something very unique in here. With my craftsmen, I can go for a very distinct. It is almost 3-story high. There were around 13 volts, catenary volts, and there was very less reinforcement that happened in the entire structure. And I was very inspired by Church of Life by Tadavandu. I wanted to do a brick version of it. And I wanted to make sure that the brick version stands on top of it. I don't know what led me to do it, but I did it. And eventually I found out that the movement of CSEB or mud blocks. So this is all made with bricks you find from the earth. You just use the soil that you find from the earth. You mix it with 5% cement and you make the mud blocks. Somewhere in 2018, I started to get more diverse in my project. I wanted to get more different in my project. And this guy, Srijesh, and his family came. They asked me to build a very different kind of building because they are from North Kerala. And in North Kerala, I knew that they loved their verandas. That was the only thing that I knew. And somewhere while I was designing, I was slowly incorporating waste as a part of my architecture at that time. Like how you go to a scrapyard and take some waste and everything. But one night, while I was designing, while I took a break, I stepped onto a Lego block, and the pain I felt was excruciating. Anybody who has, so I have a child, he's 9 years old. At that time, he was 3 years old, and there are toys all over the place. And in the night, by mistake, any parents who have stepped on a Lego block would understand. The first thought that came to my mind is how strong this is. My God, this is stronger than my brick. And that was a eureka moment for me. I was thinking, if me, so-called sustainable architect, trying to reduce as much as plastic as possible, has a heap of toys in my home, how much of toys are left behind in every house that has an infant or child growing up? This led me to design a particular idea where I used the toys in between the building blocks. So the mud brick and some tiles were found in that vicinity and that region. And I thought that I could create a parametric form with the help of these arches. And at that time, Pratika is here, who was the architect who was helping me to do the 3D. There is Dhaval here, who was the supervisor of this particular project. So we finally came out with this particular shape, which helped the form to achieve veranda on its own, because they love their verandas. They love their verandas. So this is North Kerala. I'm from South Kerala. So North Keralites love their veranda more than their drawing rooms or living rooms per se. By this time, my team of masons have become very proficient. We completed the world's largest conoid during the 2014 Biennale that happened. So this is the world's largest conoid. It is around 27 meter span. It has only 7 centimeter thickness. It is a jute sack ferrocement conoid, the largest ever made. These wonderful gentlemen who started working with me started flourishing in different types of works. And very soon we found ourselves doing some exemplary works, because we were not stopped by, conditions or conditioning. And the more we worked, the more we understood how much we knew and how less we knew. The one who guided this exemplarity was none other than Suresh. So he was my first mason. So the very first time I started, I ended up doing compound wall, because after my sister denied my bricks, I ended up building her compound wall. And this was my mason and I was his helper. So in the morning I am architect. By afternoon I end up sieving the soil for him. And we both were the initial team, and he started bringing his brother, his macha, his uncle, his mama, all those people started flowing in. And eventually it became a large team. And by now, almost 10 years into our practice, we were quite confident that we could do some very different stuff. So we were into even high-rise mud buildings. We were doing some very, very different work. So the work started quite nicely in 2018. We marked this thing, so you can see in those times, like Suresh was the lead man, he was as tall as Amitabh Bachchan, so he would, take it all up in his hands and he would charge, and everything went smoothly. Even our client, Srijesh ji also would join our endeavor and make mud bricks. Unfortunately, that video is not working, but let's forward. But a very unfortunate thing happened later on. As much as we made progress, my dear friend and literally collaborator for all these years fell prone to alcoholism. Alcoholism is a rampant struggle in the field of construction, and anyone who is part of it would understand that. And unfortunately, one day, it led to depression and he committed suicide. So this construction, this very dreamlike construction literally ended up on standstill because I literally lost a right hand of mine and I was not sure what to do. I never thought of a situation where we young people would be affected like this. This was not a scenario that I thought we would be affected. Somehow the work had to move on. I collected few new workers and masons. Some of his kin themselves helped me to again restart. And by the time we kind of restarted was when we heard all across TVs in the country, Mere Pere Deshwasiyo. The country got shut due to COVID. The entire country got shut. Nobody was allowed to move. Just when I somehow made sure that I could restart my work, everything came to a standstill. And I was literally jumping fences in order to make sure that all the teams that I, over the years I tried to make up doesn't just vanish overnight. Somehow they have to have food, they have to have money. How I provided during that time, I myself do not know, but it was a struggle. So again that COVID break, after that some workers left, some of them came, we again restarted. And when we restarted, thankfully this time, the toys started to appear from various places. Because it is toys, we just asked for some people for collections, in your apartments, can you guys give it? Instagram, Facebook and all. We put this post and all of our team members also help us collect from various places. As far as even Pune or Mumbai, we collected toys. And more than 6,000 toys started to, rile up into this scenario. And our form slowly started to take shape. This was also a period where we completed other projects and we slowly started to get more and more popular. And there were some exemplary works that were finished. This particular project, Chudi, it helped us win the Royal Academy Dorfman Award. A lot of things, and it was featured in wallpaper. It is selected as one of the best buildings. But this was also the time when we started losing some projects. This was also the time when we finally started to see the other end of the spectrum, where some spectacular projects were literally being snatched or taken away from us. And whether to blame the client, whether to blame the gods, we didn't know whom to do. But somehow we started losing some fabulous projects in this process. Is it working? And Srijesh was on the verge of insanity, my client. Because almost 6 years since we started. So 2018 we started, Suresh died, 2020 COVID came, then floods came. All those things eventually affected. But slowly and steadily we completed the work because of my client Srijesh had his final revenge. All the people who called him mad, he invited all of them to the housewarming. So what he did was, he invited around how many? 1,300. Because that many people called him mad. So he invited Another interesting part was most of the kids who donated their toys would bring their friends, gang of friends, and showcase the boards. That is just his family. So, we achieved a lot of popularity at that point of time by now. Then we were under the assumption that things have become better. Like popularity means like you are famous, you are getting a lot of projects, a lot of enquiries are coming. Doesn't mean that they convert into actual projects. And we thought that we were done with, I don't know whether because it is broadcasted live, that the words can be used properly. We were done with certain type of clients, those type of clients would not come into our lives again. But actually no. In fact, you get a bigger particular type of clients, the more popular you are. So we thought that we were safe, we were accepted from this. It's now your laptop, okay. So does innovation stop? Does popularity help? So I wanted to show you guys that another recent project which myself and Roshin had designed, my partner Roshin, and that particular project was a residence called Nisarga. This particular residence, we did a small thing on the rooftop, and suddenly it garnered a lot of views. It garnered more than 7 million views for this particular this thing. Is the sound? Sound I want sound. This is very important.
Inspire houses in Kerala and introduce skylights to it, so there can be more natural light brought into the spaces. But this gave them another idea. These breaks that they created for skylights were converted to seating spaces, so the roof could now function as an amphitheater. A pool was created in the direction the seating was oriented to, and with just a few planks, this pool now becomes a performing space. A total of 75 to 80 people can be accommodated here in this space. Also, you might be wondering what is actually inside the building. Well, inside there are a few bedrooms, living area, kitchen, and a recording studio. But for me, the highlight has to be this roof. Imagine being in this space at sunset with beautiful music. What do you think? Would you want to visit? Let me know in the comments below and follow Bless Dark for more such videos.
So as a normal architect, this is wow, wonderful. This is another actress from Kerala. I don't know how she climbed the top of my roof, but suddenly I found this video. So she operated her own, what is that thing called? The drone. And so people started to take Insta reels and stuff like that to promote the cause, and it was amazing, and anybody in my position should, in some sense, even the clients themselves started to project music performances and other activities on the residence that we designed. And being a person who entirely caters to clients, this is on top of the world, isn't it? But the fact is, it was not. There is a simple reason why it was not the greatest feeling in the world. For that, we have to rewind back again few years. So I would like to take you to the history of this debris wall. This particular building was built with something called mud and debris wall. This was a technique which we started way back in 2012, when we started this small process of because we were stuck in a riverside, an island kind of area where we couldn't get materials from outside, because bringing it through the boat means you have to actually spend a lot of money. So we couldn't really put enough money for that. So I did rammed up for main walls, and then some portions I wanted to utilize this waste technique. So we started piling up waste. We started mixing up. So by now we were quite professional in making sure that the mix doesn't crack up. We have been handling mud for quite some years by that time. And I was like thinking, okay, maybe we can work it out by putting mesh, and also because mesh is there, that means it wouldn't crack, it would be safe. Even though steel and mud is not a great idea together, it's not a great idea. You have to protect it with SPR, styra bruta, triethylene. So we did all those processes, and you can see Jay Mason actually working on that very hard. But very soon we could find that our product was actually load bearing. So that particular half wall which you can see is actually what we did. Okay? It doesn't work. You have to do it. Okay. Next. So our next job was, can we remove this outer set of like, can we do it on a higher scale? Can it take more load was our concern. So this is somewhere in 2014-15 time when we started this process. We found out that our client Biju Matthew was left with a plot like this. Now some of you might come across such a scenario where you come to the plot and you will find the rest of the neighbors or friends actually dump their waste into your property. This is happening now more often than not, so it's not something that is like that is a rare case or anything. And my client genuinely said, Vinu, I will remove all this waste and I will make sure that we will get to build your rammed earth idea. I said, Guru, the problem is, if we dump, where will we dump? Some other poor fellow's property. The same fate we have will be shared by some other poor guy. We shouldn't do that. Let's try to work it up in such a way. So we boldly used the same debris that was dumped in there. You can see the good part of the debris was used for making rammed earth walls on the behind part, and the rust parts were actually used for making mud plus waste into that. We again did the same scenario and we found out that it could form some fluidal shapes. This time we could, like play with shapes. Next. So on one side you can see rammed earth, and on the other side you can see this debris wall. It was at that time plastered because the mesh is there. We had to plaster, but the inside is completely made with waste, and the waste could take some load. Next. Some of my initial works were often video documented by the poor client himself, and this is a perfect example of how disaster looks like. So I always enter with full confidence. I never get into anything without full confidence. And the smile should be always there. This is what I generally say. You can see the debris are exceptionally large, unfortunately. And we were confident that we will get a great product. So this time I figured out that we don't need mesh, we don't need steel. We are just going to pour it into shutter and voila, magic is going to happen. So my client Ramanujam Bhasha, one of the sub-editors of a leading magazine in Kerala, was the one who was documenting this. So slowly, if we can fast forward a bit, so we are slowly starting to do this mix and pouring it stuff there. So you can see myself standing at the helm and saying everything is going to be cool, it's going to be wonderful. And at the end of this video, you can actually see what really happens. So this is where we are actually now opening the shutter. So Pawan, that man is catching this live, recording this live. So when we opened, this is what is happening. This disastrous finish is what we got. So initially when I start with this mesh and everything, and now I decided, okay, shutter. But you can see very soon, we started averting that disaster into a texture. We started calling it texture and all. So in some sense, you can see that I hit some few columns here and there because I was still not, okay, last time I could take load, but this time I was a bit afraid, Maybe it cannot take that much of load. So this is this wonderful project, Chirag. Again, a lot of awards we won for this. And this is how the final project came. And you can see again, that the texture is great, but I have given some supports at the end of it so that like things wouldn't backfire on me. So you can again see some columns were given at the end so that the load is somehow distributed good and properly. Now came the time for taking it further. So that test actually led me to believe that I got around, in a registered lab, we got the test of around 4.33 megapascal of compressive strength is there. That means I can do it. So I didn't just do it, I went for a 3-story structure called Shigara here. So now finally we got the confidence that with the shutters, without steel, you can do something marvelous in this scenario, and you can go for multi-stories. That was our agenda. Now this is way into 2020, 22 and all, you know. So it took us almost, when I started, it was 2012 when I started telling the story. Way into 2022, we kind of figured it out. Okay, good. Now comes the patent. So a patent which we applied in 2014, after a lot of legal battles, came to us only in 2022. So this is the first civil patent that an architect, non-institutionalized architect, got for a long period of time. So finally, we got a patent. We can proudly claim, okay, patent bonus and stuff like that. So after many years, this is happening, and then our final, game was this Nisarga Art Hub. So myself and Oshin were designing this a simple house, but we wanted to now show that this load-bearing wall is able to take multi-stories. And now you can see how the finish of this particular thing, like you saw how we started off, and now you can see how much we kind of got better in finishing. Architecture or construction is all about how you get better. It is not how much you fail. It's always about how you learn to be a better version of what you were previously. So you can see now we are much more, intelligent in how we are using all of those things. Like the debris is mixed in perfect proportions. Our walls are cured properly. There is jute stacks all over the place, and like shutters are better. Professionally working, of course. All those things were getting better, and then you can see that the final product was getting better day after day, and the product became exceptionally great towards the end of it. We could see that 3-story, that is my structural engineer, myself and Oshin and all standing. So always I wanted to push myself away a bit more than I would like, anyone would like, structural engineer would like. So again I pushed it to such a level where you can see in the next picture, we didn't just put the normal slab load onto the debris wall. We put an entire cantilevered studio onto these walls. So you can actually, there is a pointer in this is pointer. Yeah, you can actually see, this particular wall is taking the entire load of this particular cantilevered slab. This is a recording studio that they wanted on top. And a simple load-bearing wall. You can see a wonderful crack in there. Predicted. It happened. No problem. These things will happen. By now, I know about every cracks and whatever is happening to a particular structure. So that was predicted, and we work hard to create this beautiful, a very silent masterpiece, I would say, so that the music feels in. Because my clients were musicians. So now you would say, so what is so bad about the videos getting spread? So all these years, this is completed in 2023, isn't it? 23. That means 11 years spent for a single product, 11 years. And when you got the video out, this is what you see again. Not this. So again, I want you guys to see this video, which gathered 7.1 million likes, and which wonderfully talks about
This is a place
our
in India for musicians.
wonderful shutter debris wall technique,
Nisarga Art Hub
mud walls,
Makers is
which took
located
me
in
11 to 12 years to make.
community residency space for music performances and events. The architects took the traditional roofing system used by houses in Kerala and introduced skylights to it, so there can be more natural light brought into the spaces. But this gave them another idea. These breaks that they created for skylights were converted to seating spaces, so the roof could now function as an amphitheater. A pool was created in the direction the seating was oriented to, and with just a few planks, this pool now becomes a performing space. A total of 75 to 80 people can be accommodated here in this space. Also, you might be wondering what is actually inside the building. Well, inside there are a few bedrooms, living area, kitchen, and a recording studio. But for me, the highlight has to be this roof. Imagine being in this space at sunset with beautiful music. What do you think? Would you want to visit? Let me know in the comments below and follow Bless Dark for more such videos. This is a place in India.
So imagine the happiness that you have, that your 11-year work, in some sense, gets discarded. Myself and Oshin, it was during the last phase of our construction, we kind of thought, okay, maybe the clients were actually asking, we gave large living rooms for them to conduct music performances and everything. They said, Vinu, is there any chance? And they had a small prop. Is there any chance for us to, do some amphitheater things and everything? Then I was like literally thinking, now only space is on the roof. That was what I was exactly thinking. And that one small thing suddenly got highlighted so much. It got very popular. I'm thankful for that. Not like I'm thankless, but it's literally shadowed the entire effort of a 11 to 12 year effort and an ongoing effort. So sometimes life doesn't go in that particular way. But nevertheless, it was a fantastic residence to complete, and this is the final video of it. So we made the musicians to conduct an entire concert on top of the residence. Now let's hear some stories outside of our country. We were invited to do the Sharjah Architecture Triennale. And every pavilion is an opportunity for us to do something about that particular region, that particular waste that affects the region and stuff like that. And like any serious architect, we were planning to kickstart the work as soon as possible. And our first case study showed that some of the world's largest teardowns actually happen in some of the GCC countries. and I wouldn't want to name it, but this particular tire dump, which you can see in here, is actually seen from space. So large is the tire dump, and India is also one of the biggest polluters in terms of wasting tires, and India is also one of the biggest garbage collectors of tires. Most of these countries who dump their tires dumps almost a whopping share of 70 to 80% in India. The rest in Bangladesh, rest in Pakistan, and so on. Some of the tire dumps are so far that they are so large that you simply cannot go to the end of it. There are tire fires which accidentally starts, which has been ongoing for more than 50 years in some parts of USA, New Mexico. So the whole point for us was that understanding that GCC countries takes a lot of it, and mud in GCC countries doesn't have any clay. It is just simply desert sand. And one of the last places anybody would talk about mud architecture is Sharjah or UAE in that sense. So we try to find the particular density and the amount of soil particles in this particular type of soil. We wanted to test it. So we tested it with the sand available from Jaisalmer, which is the nearest to the desert soil which was available in Gulf countries. And then our studies led us to believe that we can, so these are the art studies, so we have a lot of stability studies, as you can see from the church which you've seen long back. There is something called catenary optimization study and funicular study. You have to actually balance the loads in such a way, but that is another chapter or another discussion. So we found out that tires can become domes and arches. So thinking again in a very confident level, we kind of presented it to the main team of Sharjah Architecture Triennale. We told them that, this is a fantastic idea. We can combine two materials together, that is the desert soil and the tires, the waste tires. And the topic was impermanence. And taking into the consideration of impermanence, this is the most wonderful idea that we can contribute towards it. While many of the participating artists brought materials from their own countries, we felt it was not ideal to ship in materials from my country, India. Rather, utilize the local materials, because we followed a Gandhian philosophy of using materials within a 5-mile radius. So in the 5-mile radius, there were a lot of tire waste dumps. There was a lot of desert. It's desert. So I thought this was a sure 100% sure shot, victory. But no, we got rejected. And one of the things that an architect who is practicing always endures or always has to go through is rejection. We face rejection almost on a daily, almost like a daily side dish. We face rejection from every corner. We have one particular way of dealing with it. We do not take rejection in the terms of completely. A lot of you might have questions. How did you do this? How did you do that? One of the first things which we accepted and accommodated was that rejection is a part of this life. Otherwise, go sell ice cream. Everybody loves you. You can make new flavors. Architecture means there is rejection. You are going to get rejected. What do you do with the rejection? How can you work the scenario in such a way that you can make something better out of it? So we knew we had an ally. Our curator Toshino Oshinowo was a learned woman, and she was someone whom we could trust. So we started pulling threads on her direction. We started convincing, you are the curator, you should be the one who is saying all these things. And she was someone who was kind of thinking, these are the only architects who are actually planning to do something with their hands on the site, because she was talking about sustainability. This was her idea. Whereas the rest of the architects were all bringing in exhibition pieces from their own country land and exhibiting it, which we didn't have any question. We don't want to comment on others' works, but she felt very strongly about this. So this ally helped us to win the argument. So we started work. I brought in my partner Oshin, there was another associate, Preksha, and of course my age-old Mason Johnson. Now all of them have grown old, huge white beard. So we brought them all to Sharjah to kickstart the procedure. And this is where things started to get more serious. We found out that there were a lot of elements which were put against our choice. We found out that most of our workers didn't even have the skill to understand basic masonry, and we had to teach them from first. We were given these Pakistani boys, that is my leader Shamrais, and this is Tawkir. They are both from the Sindh region in Pakistan. And unfortunately, the boys didn't know much about construction, even construction. Only Tawkir knew something about masonry. So we had to again kickstart those baby steps of, like making the baby walk, small baby steps. We had to really start again. We had to really start teaching them. This is ramming. At the end of this video, you can actually see me actually getting down and telling them, So you have to ram it like this. With my broken Hindi and his broken Sindhi, we communicated. So you can hear us say, ramming कहता है. इसके क्या करता है? Ramming कहता है. So slowly we kickstarted this process. One of the volunteers actually recorded this beautiful video. This came with its own problems. Tire was very heavy. The tires which we get in that area is quite large. So filling in soil. So this is architect Reksha and of course architect all of them. So the workers slowly started to get the hang of it. So the volunteers are also teaching the workers. We had to complete this in a very small span of 45 days. And the foundation was very sure we wouldn't be able to complete, because they have put in enough headaches in our path that it became almost impossible to really finish this particular work. Nevertheless, we pushed on, working day and night. Now that is when some of the challenges became our advantages. These boys didn't know anything about construction. So when we told there is overtime, they are ready to work. So we made them work. And as it reached more higher and higher, we had to give these supports. And eventually it came to such a scenario that it was full of supports. So this is when the pavilion foundation people came and started saying, oh my God, if we remove any of these jacks, this will all collapse on top of. And I am telling the theoretical things, no, they have to join together, then they will take the load. You don't have to worry, this is fantastic, and all those things. So they never were ready to believe me. In fact, they didn't even enter the pavilion after it was inaugurated, because they were simply afraid. So the first people to finish it. So in some sense, we were nearing towards the last end of the finishing of the pavilion. So this is the last part, and I thought, okay, plastering is so easy. They can easily plaster. We put the measure on, and we wanted to do this desert mud plaster kind of thing on top of it. And that is when we realized our workers didn't know anything about plastering. In fact, by the time we got very good friends, biryani was our friendship deal. So I used to buy them biryani quite often to make good friends with them. And one of those times when the work was going late night, they became very friendly towards Oshin and said, "Ma'am, aap bolo, हम कितना साल से ये काम कर रहे हैं आपके हिसाब से?" She said, she didn't want to say that, okay, you guys are very bad in work. So she said, आप 1 साल, आप 2 साल. मैडम, मैं ट्रक ड्राइव करता था इससे पहले 1 महीने पहले. मेरा मामा ने बोला अभी काम है, आप आओ. मैंने आया पाकिस्तान से. So, no doubt she was shocked. She called me that night itself and was screaming, saying that these workers don't know anything about work. And when I came towards the last end of the part, things got very serious, because they were very meticulous because of them only. Because these wonderful boys from Pakistan only, I was able to even complete something near that. So you can see me standing underneath some of the jack props, because I knew which jack prop to remove, which we shouldn't remove. So only me and one of the boys, daring boys, came with me. So it was our job, while these guys were doing work on top, to remove one jack prop each, because people wouldn't know which to remove. I know the exact loading and everything. But it got more and more tense from there. In fact, it came to a last stage where our workers didn't know how to plaster. So I had to resort to some heavy, extreme methodology. So what I did was, I showed them this video of this lady throwing cow dung, on top of this wall like this. And every kid in Pakistan is either a singer or a fast bowler. So I knew this was easy for my boys to just throw it like this. So I showed them, I got bowlers. See this Ammachi from India doing it, then you guys can do it, easy. This kind of invigorated them to such an extent that they suddenly became Pakka stars. And they started to do, I also of course contributed to this particular portion. And to showcase how strong this is, we poured another 20 tons of soil over to this entire structure, just to show how strong this is, so that the people would understand that this is typically soil. And this also helped us to proclaim this camouflage architecture we were trying to promote. We think that in many areas, architecture has moved more towards establishing yourself. We need to have a bit of hidden agenda, like how Doshi sir, Giri sir did this particular project. I love this thing, like it is sunken into the ground and it's beautiful. It actually exemplifies something which we should really accentuate in our body of work, is to be a part of nature, be a necklace around nature rather than prodding over it. So in this scenario, you can see how finally the pavilion was completed, how the tires actually became almost magical. You should understand, none of them knew construction 1 month before this. With a bunch of 15, 16 boys. So we completed this pavilion, and slowly the media started taking over. They started calling it great and stuff like that. We won a lot of accolades, and the video is there now. So one of a leading photographers actually took a fabulous video of this particular project. So let's just see that. And it was also featured in the, what is that? COP UAE. What is that? COP. That was the time when the COP was happening in Dubai at that time. It was featured in this particular pavilion. This is the 3-minute pavilion. So we used a total of 1,440 tires for the entire pavilion. And that is the exact number we waste in 3 minutes. So generally when you go through a pavilion, it's around 3 minutes that you take.